At this time, I'd like to thank you for joining us for today's MarketSharp webinar series, sponsored by MarketSharp, Window and Door Dealers Alliance, and Level 10 Contractor. And since it's the top of the hour, let's go ahead and get started. To kick things off, I'd like to introduce Tim Mush, Director of Business Development. So Tim, go ahead and take it away.
Well, thank you, Michelle, and thanks for joining us on a Sunday, as we approach to get together for things like this time of the year, but you guys are to be commended. And hopefully the reason you came is because of the title of the webinar, which I love, by the way, How to Make the Jump to $10 Million with Your Home Services Company. More on that in a little bit, but I just think that's a great topic, and it's right on target with what we're going to discuss. So a lot to cover today, so quick housekeeping things. You can communicate with us through the use of the communication palette. You should have had one pop up on your screen. It looks similar to what I'm pointing to on the slide right now. There's an area called questions, and that's where you can do just that. You can send questions our way, comments our way during the webinar. Do our best to keep up, although we got a very large group here today, and sometimes we can't. We might get you a text message back with an answer, or we might bring up your question on the call so the whole group can benefit. So feel free to use that should you want to send something our way. Today's webinar sponsors, and by the way, these webinars can't happen without these sponsors, so hopefully you'll check them out. Our company here, MarketSharp CRM. We also have a new sponsor here, been a great alliance friend of ours for a number of years, the Window and Door Dealers Alliance. You'll hear more about them in a second. And then also Rich's company, Level 10 Contractor. So that's who's making the webinar available to you. So hang around till the end. I'm going to give away a few things, as Michelle mentioned earlier. First, a one-year subscription to MarketSharp CRM. That's about a $1,380 value. And then Rich just released a new book here a bit ago. And this is great because there aren't books like this just for our industry. And there is now. And this book is called Unlocking Unlimited Lead Flow. And this is not a generic marketing advertising book. This book is dead on for what we do in this business. And tried to put a value on that, and all I could come up with is it could be worth up to a $10 million value to you, because that's essentially what we're talking about here today. So if you don't mind, I want to send you a quick question to get a gauge of who's on the webinar with us, and feel free to do your best here and let us know what your approximate annual revenue is. Quickly go ahead and respond to this, and we'll gather up the information and we'll share the results with the group. And kind of interesting how it's shaping up. So it looks like about half of you submitted your responses so far. So quickly, the rest of you go ahead and click on screen. Okay, I'm going to close the poll in just a few seconds. All right. Thanks so much. Here's what we got. Looks like we got 16% of you under $1 million, but the lion's share of you are between $1 and $3 million. Close second between 3 and 5, and then we go 16% between 5 and 10. And look, 9% of you are over $10 million. And even though the title of the webinar is How to Get to $10 million, you guys hang around because, even if you're over $10 million, I think the things we're going to talk about here today will take you to whatever your next level is. But this is about exactly how I thought this was going to turn out. More on that in just a second. Okay. So let's move on. And again, talk about the title, How to Make the Jump to 10 million. And Rich will elaborate more on this in a second. But what I've seen, traveling around the country and talking to a lot of folks at events and things such as that, I see a lot of companies get to what the poll question revealed today, to that $1, $2, $3, $4 million mark, and just kind of stick there. Can't seem to get over that hump, because it does take something different to move you to that next level and getting to 10 million and beyond. So Rich and I got our heads together and thought, gosh, that is a great concept to try to bring to a group like we're on today and talk about the specific things necessary to make that jump to $10 million. So with that, I want to introduce our speaker today. A great friend of mine. I've known Rich since about 2005, and he'll probably mention a little bit about that in a second. Rich is the founder of Level 10 Contractor. He's also an author, as you know. He's the CEO of the company. He's worked with over 1,000 clients in a lot of different industries, conducted over 10,000 hours of training. but now he's specializing in our space, the remodeling home improvement space. And he's been doing a full range of marketing fulfillment services for our industry, and began doing that specifically since 2012. So with that, Rich, are you with us? Welcome to the call.
Hey, Tim, how you doing? Good to be on your call again. It's been a while.
It has.
So, I want to thank you for letting me come on your webinar today. I've got some information that's, I wouldn't say it's new and improved, but I think it's organized a little bit different. That's going to shed some good light on some things for some of these contractors that are really thinking in terms of growth. So, you ready for me to take this and run with it? Hello?
Yeah, Rich, I think you got control now. You should be able to move the slide.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see how this works here. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. So let me just get my controls all situated here. So like Tim said, I've been doing this for a long time, both in the remodeling industry, home services industry, and outside of it. It started in 1994. Actually, November 9th will be the 25-year anniversary of my company. And I've done a lot of different marketing consulting, marketing, advertising, writing, copywriting for lots of different kinds of companies. But like Tim said, it was 2005. It was through Tim Mush and MarketSharp that I got involved in this industry. He called me up and he said, hey, do you want to do a webinar? In those days, it was called a teleseminar. And I said, sure, why not? And after talking to something like 300 or 400 contractors and having some really good feedback on that quote teleseminar, I asked Tim, who's the marketing guru in this industry? And he said, we really don't have one. We've got tons of sales trainers and sales gurus, but nobody really in the marketing space. And so we started doing a bunch of seminars together. This was back in 2005, 2006, 2007. I think we did something like 25 or 30 events all over the country. That was just with MarketSharp. Then I got involved with lots of different magazines and publications and conferences. Long story short, since 2005, we've become exclusively positioned in this market space of remodeling contractors, interior, exterior, also home services company. Okay, so a lot of experience here. Our company used to be known as Monopolize Your Marketplace. You may have heard that name. That's the name that we were working with MarketSharp before, all of the webinars and seminars we've done. But we've recently rebranded to Level 10 Contractor. And I want to tell you why. This is not for any kind of reason of, hey, we just need a different vibe or we want a different color or it's time to reboot. It really had to do with a mindset. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. And hopefully what I'm about to say will resonate with you because, Tim, I'll actually be honest with you. The poll results were actually skewed a little heavier towards the larger companies than the typical average crowd. I think it was something like 45% total were over $3 million. We typically get a lot of the smaller ones. And I'm hoping that that's the case because when you saw the title of this webinar, I'm hopeful that some of the companies that were in the a little bit bigger areas, 3 to 5, 5 to 10, and certainly 10 million plus, said, hey, this is something that I'm interested in. I'm going to tell you what happened. It started with a phone call in 2011. I was on spring break with my kids, and I got a phone call from a guy named Mark Aiken, and he said, hey, I want you to come do your 4-day marketing boot camp for my company in Wilmington, Delaware. And I said, who is this again? What are you talking about? I don't do 4-day marketing boot camps on site for companies. I do them in a central location, and companies from all over the country come in and attend them. He said, yeah, I know, but I want you to do it just for me. How much would you charge me to do that? And I'd never been asked such a question. I said, I don't know, probably $40,000 or $50,000. He said, $40,000. Who do I make the check out to? Where do I send it? I want to do this 4-day boot camp. So I found myself about a month later in Wilmington, Delaware, talking to 10 people for 4 days. And this company was called Horizon Services. And I'm going to go ahead and put this next slide on here. Horizon Services was an HVAC company that was up there in Wilmington, Delaware, also serviced the Philadelphia area. They were doing about $44 million in sales. And the reason they paid me all that money to come out there and do that workshop is they wanted to see if the things that they thought that they knew about me and my company were actually true, because they were interested in going to another level with their marketing. Okay. Now, this is a $44 million company, not small by any stretch of the imagination. One of the top 10 at the time companies, and grew, as I'll tell you here in a minute, to one of the largest companies in the industry. But this company was doing $44 million, and they had plateaued out in their marketing. And their question was, how do we get to the next level? Well, the way we got to the next level is everything that we're about to talk about on this webinar. Here's what I found. A company that has $44 million with a guy like Mark Aiken running it was doing things significantly different than most of the companies I was used to working with, which were smaller companies in the remodeling industry, companies that were in the $1 to $2 to $3 million range. I found out that it wasn't just that they were spending more money, because they were. I found out that they had a completely different mindset and way of thinking. And as I started working with this company, we had success. In about 6 years, from 2011 to 2017, the company grew from $44 million in sales to $150 million in sales, and they were actually bought out by a private equity firm for 9 figures in 2017. Well, in 2015, midway through that process, I got a call from a company called Jericho. This is a kitchen and bath remodeling company in Kansas City. And John Bartram, the owner, said, hey, we're doing just fine, but we need to get a leg up in our marketing. We feel like we've got a great story to tell, and we feel like all we're doing is competing on price. Can you help me out? Well, started working with that company in 2015. And guess what I found out? This company at the time was doing about $12 million in sales, and I found out that they were doing things significantly different than most of my clients up until that point, except for Horizon Services. I saw that they were doing a lot of things very, very similar to Horizon Services. Then I got a call from a company called Service Champions out in Orange County, California. This is a company that was doing at the time about $30 million in sales. And they said, hey, we saw what you're doing for Horizon Services. Can you do that for us? And so I started working with them. And I found that this company also had a massively different way of thinking and doing things than the companies that I had been used to working with. I also started working with a company called 1-800-Hansons and a company called You Build It, national franchise company. And all of these companies had one thing in common, which is they did everything different. And you say, well, how could it be that they did everything different? Well, it all has to do with the way that they thought and the way that they did their marketing. So I took all of that experience. Jericho, I still work with. Horizon Services, after they sold to private equity, I stopped working with them because the new owners had, let's say, differences in opinion on what needed to be done. Service Champions, bought by private equity for 9 figures just earlier this year. And I'm still working with them. It's a great company. Also work with their sister company in Northern California. 1-800-Hansons, bought by private equity in 2017 for, I think, 9 figures. It might have been high 8 figures. Who knows? You Build It, national franchise, still work with them. But here's what I did. I wrote a book last year called Unlocking Unlimited Lead Flow. And I can't get this thing to go the way I want it. There we go. There we don't go. Sorry, Tim. It's a little sensitive here on the controls. Unlocking Unlimited Lead Flow. This book is a culmination of everything that I learned working with these kinds of companies from 2011 till last year when I wrote the book, 2018. It actually was published in January of this year. And you can see on there a blueprint for remodeling and home services contractors to make the jump to $10 million. Now, if you are doing $10 million or more, this book is still for you. If you're doing less than $10 million, definitely this book is for you. Okay? So our mission statement as a company, Level 10 Contractor, is to help remodeling and home service companies make the jump to 10 million plus by generating unlimited lead flow. And what we're going to talk about on this webinar is, well, how do you do that? How do you do that? One comment before we get going on that is a concern that people have when I'm talking to them about this is, well, if I'm not already a big company, is this something that'll work for me? Well, here's the common denominators of these companies. They have the best products and services. So I want you to ask yourself as you look at the points on this slide that are coming up, do you qualify in this fundamental, foundational set of questions? Do you have the best products and services? If you don't, this isn't going to work. Next, they charge the highest prices in the market. My guess is there may be some room for you to raise your prices. If you're a middle of the road price guy, not as likely to work. Now, you don't have to be the highest, but you definitely got to be on the higher end. And the reason is because you need money to spend on things like marketing. Horizon Services every single year set a budget for marketing for the following year. This was done in December for the following year, and they always set their budget as a percentage of anticipated sales for the following year. So in other words, they didn't look at the year they just had and said, well, okay, here was how much we did, so we're going to allocate X percent to marketing for next year based on that. Nope, they based it on what they anticipated doing the next year, and they spent it, and they spent a lot of it. And we're talking a lot of money. Well, where did all that money come from? Well, they charge the highest prices of anybody else. Next, they never cut corners on anything, nothing. These are companies that do everything right all of the time. And when they mess up somehow for some reason, because it's inevitable, they make it right. They bend over more than backwards. They can afford to deal with the inevitable problems that pop up. They don't. One of my clients burned a customer's house down because one of their workers made a stupid mistake and the house burned down. And I'm going to tell you, that was a golden, shining moment for this company. When they burned that house down, I'm telling you, they more than made it right. Okay, I'm not encouraging you to burn people's houses down. These are companies that are the best. They're companies that make the most money. Okay, so that's sort of the premise. You don't have to be big, but you have to have this idea that you're going to do things right. Okay, so question for you: why $10 million in sales? Why would you want to do that? Well, if you own a company that's doing $2 or $3 million in sales, or even $4 or $5 million in sales, I want you to understand what the difference is in $10 million. If you're putting a bare minimum, which you should be, of 10% to your bottom line net profit before taxes, that's $1 million a year in personal income for you, the owner of the business. And I want you to think about what that allows you to do, not just professionally, but personally. I went to a meeting, the story is in the book, with John Bartram of Jericho Home Improvements. I was sitting in his office waiting, and he was late. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. He was late by about 15 minutes, and he walked in, and he kind of rushed in, and he said, man, I'm so sorry. I was dealing with the vet. Yesterday, our dog got stung by a bee in its mouth. It had an allergic reaction, and we had to deal with it at the vet, and that's why I'm late. Well, as I talked to him, I found out that all of the treatments that they had spent on this dog added up to almost $15,000 to save their dog. And he didn't bat an eye. He didn't care. You know why? Because they're making money hand over fist. I've got clients that have lots of goals in the areas of taking care of their elderly parents, being the person in their family that can handle any eventuality. Whatever your reason is, $10 million is the number that's going to get you over the hump financially. So just think about that. I don't want to dwell on that. I want to dwell on the marketing part of this. The next part is it even possible? And a lot of you who are in the 5 million, 10 million range, you look at that and say, well, of course it's possible. But I'm going to tell you, I've dealt with a gazillion companies in this industry that have been at $2.5 or $3 million for 36 years. I mean, this is not this is the common thing. Yeah, we started this company in 1984, and now we're doing $2.3 million. And you start to wonder after a while, is it even possible to grow? And let me tell you unequivocally, the answer is absolutely, positively yes. But it's going to take the right mindset. So let's talk about how to do it. Here's how you do it. Number one, and these are the points that we're going to go through in this webinar. Point number one, that what I call the $10 million mindset. Number two, identity, standing out from the crowd. This is huge. This is the first marketing element that has to be mastered to get to this level and to go wherever you're trying to get to. The next one is your website. That seems pretty obvious. I'm going to show you some things about your website that you may not realize. Next, 4, I guess, online marketing. That sounds pretty obvious. You've got to master it. You can't be okay at it. I talked to a company, a roofing company out on the East Coast. They're doing $5 million in sales. They've got a giant flaming sack of crap for a website. It's terrible. I cannot tell you how horrible this is. We do an audit. I'll show you these audits later on where we audit websites on two major categories. One is findability. How easy is it for Google to find it? And number two is conversionability. How well does the website do at converting people that do come to the website into leads and into sales? It rated a 17 out of 100. Imagine if your kid brought a report card home with a 17 in math. This guy's doing $5 million with a 17 out of $100 website. And you say, well, that sounds like a success story, right? He's doing well. Well, guess what? He's getting all of his business from telemarketing and knocking on people's doors and doing events. He's doing zero advertising, and he's not doing any online marketing because he can't, because as soon as people see that crappy website, they check out. Online marketing is something that has to be mastered if you want to compete on these other levels. There's so much business to be had online if you know how to capture it. And honestly, the huge companies in this industry are brilliantly taking all of the business. Meanwhile, all the $3 million guys are getting nothing. And that's got to change if you want to make the jump to $10 million. Next, TV and radio advertising. We'll talk about this just briefly at the end. This is a huge topic for me. It covers about the last 40% of the book. It goes into a tremendous amount of detail about how to negotiate media, how to write ads, all of the things that you need to know. Let me give you the short answer. You're almost certainly doing it wrong. Now, if you're spending $1 million, $2 million, there's room for improvement. You're not doing it wrong, but there's a massive room for improvement. I'll talk about that. If you're a smaller guy and you're saying to yourself, well, we tried that, it didn't work, or we're too small to do that, or we can't do that, or any kind of thing that says I can't do it or it doesn't work, you are sorely, sorely, sorely mistaken. This is the key to growing. When I started working at Horizon Services, $44 million company built primarily on direct mail, newspaper advertising, and mostly direct mail and newspaper advertising. They were spending $56,000 a year when I found this company in 2011 on radio, zero on TV. They had tried it in the past. It didn't really work. They couldn't measure it. They didn't like it. They were spending almost $5 million a year on marketing and only $56,000 on radio. And that's because the sales manager at that company's sister-in-law worked at the radio station or something weird like that. Within, 3 years, we were spending $4.5 million on TV and radio. And the company went from $44 million to $150 million, maxing out at about $5 million in TV and radio. If you think that TV and radio, quote unquote, doesn't work, trust me, it's not TV and radio that's broken. It's your way of thinking about it and executing it that's broken. So we're going to talk about that as we go into this. So let's jump into the first one. Last one, lead management. Oh my gosh, lead management. We'll talk about this as we get to the end of the webinar. This is a huge, okay, so here's the deal. People are like, hey, give me more leads. Give me more leads. Tell me how to get more leads. And the book is called Unlocking Unlimited Lead Flow. But I'm going to tell you this. If you don't manage the leads that you do get efficiently, you could be losing 10, 15, 20, 25, 30% of the sales that you should be getting from the leads you already paid money to generate if you're not properly managing your leads. This is a huge topic. And it's one that is covered extensively in the book and that I want to cover briefly because we got to cover each of these pretty quickly on this webinar. We have a limited amount of time. So let's get going. All right, the $10 million mindset. It all starts with how you think. I cannot stress to you that this is the most important part of everything that we're going to talk about today. It's how you think. I see little business owner mentalities all the time. We can't do it because of this. We tried it and it didn't work. And all of these fear-based, loss-based mindsets that just aren't going to get you where you're trying to go. So let's go through a couple of these. The first one is simply demanding excellence. And I'm going to tell you a little story about when I first met Mark Aiken. I went up there to do that $40,000 4-day marketing boot camp for him. He'd let me tour his facilities at the time. And when we were touring the facilities, we were walking up this back set of stairs that only employees, probably only 3 or 4 different employees would even walk up this particular stairs based on where it was positioned in the building. It was for executives. And as we're walking up the stairs, Mark stopped. He pointed at a dime-sized, like, little stain on the carpet on these back stairs, and he said to his assistant, "What's that?" She said, "I guess it's a stain." He said, "Why is there a stain on this carpet? We need to get it removed." Then we went down into his warehouse. This warehouse was immaculate. Their company colors are orange, so this warehouse had orange shelving. It looked like a Home Depot, except 10 times better because it didn't look all crappy like a Home Depot. And when we went in there, he looked on the floor, and their skid steer loader had made some marks on the floor, about 2 or 3 feet long. They were black marks. And he said to the guy that ran the warehouse, "Hey, what's going on with these marks on the floor?" And the guy said, "Oh, well, it just happened like literally less than 5 minutes ago." And he said, "We need to get that cleaned up." And then as we walked out of the warehouse, we were walking down the hall back to his office, and you could see down the hall, at the end of the hall, it was probably about a 50, 60-foot hall, there was a glass door where you could see out to the parking lot where there was trucks. And Mark stopped and he said, "Hey, why does that truck out there have clipboards and paperwork on the dashboard?" It's a big no-no in his company. And somebody that was with him said, I don't know, let me check who it is, we'll get it taken care of. And I thought, holy crap, this dude has a demand for detail and excellence. And you hear those stories and you think, wow, man, that guy sounds like a jerk. I don't know if I'd want to work for a guy like that. And I'm going to tell you something. Everybody who didn't demand excellence in that company never lasted more than a week to a month. They quit or they got fired. And everybody else there, they didn't need to be reprimanded because they patrolled and policed themselves, because the company culture was that they demanded excellence in everything they did. Is that your company? Or do you let crap slide because nobody's really in charge of it, or who cares, or it's not that big of a deal? Do you demand excellence? Next, knowing that you don't know. One of my favorite stories in this regard, well, first of all, Mark Aiken saying, "Hey, we'll come up here and do this boot camp training for us." But when I was working with Brian Elias, I'd worked with him for about a year, and we'd done a bunch of stuff for his website, for his advertising, and then we had kind of finished that engagement. He called me a couple months later and he said, "Hey, Rich, I'm having some trouble with my sales presentation. I feel like there's some things that could be tweaked and fine-tuned. Would you be willing to take a look at it? I'd like to get my sales manager and a couple other guys and myself in a room with you for a day and just have you look at our presentation and give us some feedback." Now, this is Brian Elias. At the time, they were doing about $60 or $70 million in sales. They know how to flipping sell stuff. My expertise isn't even sales. I'm good at it. I have a lot of information about it. My expertise is marketing. He said, "Can you meet with us?" And I said, "Well, come on down to my home offices." I lived in Texas at the time. I've since relocated to Utah. Within a week, he had flown down there with a sales manager, 2 other guys. I don't remember who they were. The 4 of them came down, sat in my home office. I charged them $15,000 for a day to sit there and look at their sales presentation. I made a 17-page document that had all the fine tunes that I could figure out, and I sent it to him. And I thought, this is amazing. A guy whose company really, their core competency is selling. They got a lot of core competencies, but that was really one of them. Said, "You know what? I'm going to go get an opinion from somebody else that can put some eyes on this." Knowing you don't know. Now, compare that to a lot of these $2-3 million companies I deal with that have an owner that's been there for 32 years that's doing $2.2 million. And anytime I suggest anything, all they do is tell me that they can't do it, why it won't work, and how they do it, and how it's different, and that what I'm telling them isn't the right thing. And I think, okay, great. So this is what level 10 really is all about. We took those kinds of companies that don't have ears to hear and aren't really interested in growing. They say they are, but they're not really having the right mindset. And here's what we did. We fired all of them. We're not interested in dealing with those companies anymore. It's a mindset thing. And guess what? Our lives over here on our side, level 10 contractor, got way easier because we got rid of all the companies that complained about every little thing and said, let's deal with companies that really want to make the jump, that have the right mindset, that don't know everything and they're okay with that. Next, raising your prices. Jericho Home Improvement raised their prices 6 times by 15%. Do the math on that. 15% 6 times. I don't know. I actually don't have the math in front of me. It's like doubling or tripling their prices or something like that over about a 2.5 year period. They're by far the highest priced kitchen and bathroom remodeler in Kansas City. Nobody else is even close. And they do 5 to 8 times the volume of their next biggest competitors in that market. Why? Because they're awesome. They own the marketing. They do a good job. They do what they say. The highest prices are going to allow you to have the money to do everything right. If you don't have the highest prices, you will not have the money to do everything right. You think that your clients will say no if you raise your prices, yet it's objectively not true because you charge different prices than other people. And other people in your industry that you're competing against that charge lower prices, guess what they believe? They believe that they can't charge your price, yet you do it. How is that even possible? It's about helping people to understand who you are, how you're different, why you're better. We're going to get to that in just a minute. Next, budgeting for success. Like I said, Horizon is one example. All of the clients that I deal with, they set their budgets in advance and they stick to them come hell or high water, and they make it happen. You've got to spend the money on the marketing. You have to. You can't say, well, our budget is X, but we're running a little ahead of schedule, so we're going to cut back. You can't do that. You've got to run the budget. Okay, I don't want to focus on that one too much. Next, exiting the comfort zone. This is a huge one. If all you've ever done, like the company that I mentioned earlier, that is a roofing company on the East Coast, if all you've ever done is telemarketing and events and door knocking, well, you know what? It's uncomfortable as heck to say, well, here's a conversation we have all the time. You need to spend $25,000 to revamp your website. And companies say, why on earth would I spend that much money on a website? We spend $2,000 on websites. And we look at them and say, yeah, that's why your website is a flaming sack of crap, because you spent $2,000 with somebody's nephew, and it sucks. It has no identity. It builds no case. It doesn't help people understand who you are, how you're different, why you're better, and it doesn't work. You've got to do things right. You don't cut corners in your business. Think about this. If you're the kind of company that goes out and has a sales pitch when you're sitting in the living room with your client and it says, we do everything right, we have the best products and services, we have the best people, we hire the best, we pay our people the best, we have the cleanest trucks, the best trucks, we uniform our people, we direct test them, we background check, all of these things that you talk about, we don't cut corners, we insist on doing everything's right, and then you half-ass it when it comes to your own marketing, when it comes to your own website, when it comes to your own budgeting, when it comes to your own software systems and everything internal. It doesn't work. You can't do that. That's not level 10. That's called level, 4, 2, 3, I don't know. Here's what we're talking about in this seminar today. This is what the book is all about. This is the idea that I really want you to take away from this. To make this happen, you have to think right. It's a mindset. And if you don't demand excellence and insist on doing things right and have the prices that allow you to have the money to execute your program and your plan and your strategy, it'll never happen. I've seen it never happen for 1,000 companies over the last 15 years in this industry. And they struggle along and they kind of grow when the economy is good, and then they suck when the economy starts going down, and they can't figure it out and they wonder what's going on. And I'm telling you, it's how you think. That's what this is all about. Okay? So here's what I call the comfort zone. I call it your bread and butter. What you've done so far has gotten you to this point. If you want to get past the point that you're at, you got to do something different. You got to do something different. I work with a company in the Midwest, like a $25, $30 million company, somewhere in that range. They excel at events and home shows. They do like 150 in 4 different markets every year. And they have success with it. They're really good at it. They're probably one of the best that I've ever met at it. They also excel at online lead generation with aggregators. But here's the problem. There's no more events for them to do. Here's the problem. They're already buying every lead that comes from the aggregators that can possibly be bought. So we're fine-tuning how they follow up, how they respond, what email they send, all of those things we're working on them with. But here's the problem. There's not any more leads available from those sources. So how do you grow? And the answer is you got to get into some things that you haven't done. In their case, they do zero TV, they do zero radio. If they want to grow from a $25, $30 million company to a $50 to a $100 million company, they're going to have to master that. There's no choice. There's no alternative. They're going to have to do it. There's not more shows. Their bread and butter is tapped out or close to tapped out. Of course, there's always some fine tuning, but that's the point here is you got to get to the next level. So let's talk about the major foundational point. It's called identity. I do an entire webinar on this. I do an entire keynote session on this at conferences. We're going to do the condensed version, how to stand out from the crowd. This is so, so critical, and I want you to know something. This is an area that no matter what your sales are, no matter how big you are, if you're doing $40 million in sales or $4 million in sales, I promise you, this is an untapped area where you can exploit this to your advantage, because I'm going to tell you something. The average company out there absolutely sucks at this. Absolutely, positively sucks. And this is a huge opportunity for you if you can figure it out. So here's what you want. You want to look like that one red apple in the sea of green apples. Here's what you think. You think that you're the red apple in the sea of green apples. Here's what the reality is. You're just another green apple in a sea of green apples. And you say, well, that's not true and that's not right. And I don't like that you said that, Rich. And if you knew my company better, you would see that that's not true. And you know what? I'm not going to tell you that you're not doing things different and you're not doing things better and that you're not a better company and all these positive, wonderful things that you've worked so hard. But here's what I am telling you. You make it almost impossible for your prospects and people out there in the marketplace to know that you're different and better. As they look at your company, you look about the same. You smell about the same. You taste about the same. Everything from outward appearances is about the same, and you've got to change that. Okay? How do you change that? Well, that's what we're going to talk about. Most marketing that I've seen is full of platitudes. Here's the definition of a platitude. Words or phrases that are drearily commonplace and predictable, that lack power to evoke interest through overuse and repetition, that are nevertheless stated as if they were original or significant. Words like best service, highest quality, largest selection, free estimates. We've been in business since 1431 BC, like anybody gives a flying rip. Nobody cares. Here's what people want to know. How are you different? What makes you special? What can I expect when I do business with you? And these are things that are almost never communicated powerfully in marketing. They're just not, okay? And the result is you look like your competition. Your website looks like your competitors. Your home show displays look like your competitors. Your print advertising, your online advertising, your TV and radio advertising, your direct mail, it all looks basically the same as everyone else. You got a different color, you got a different logo, you got a different font, but besides that, it all looks and sounds about the same. And you know what? You say, I don't believe it. Well, let's do a quick Google search and we will prove this. What we're going to do is we're going to Google. These are screenshots, not an actual Google search. I actually did Google search this earlier and then I took the screenshots so I can show you on this webinar. I Googled Dallas James Hardy sighting. That's what I Googled. And here's what came up. Let's take a quick look. These are literally the first ones that came up. I didn't look for ones that were particularly bad or weird or anything. These are just the ones that came up by Google. Allied Siding and Roofing, Irving. Since 1988, Allied Siding and Windows has serviced over 40,000 satisfied customers with home improvement projects in Texas. Allied Siding Windows installs more Hardy plank siding than any other company in Texas. Now with sales and production teams in Houston, Dallas, and Austin, Allied Siding and Windows is equipped to deliver blah, 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 blah. Their elite preferred, if whatever that means, and they have an 85% recommendation rate, which means 15% of people, I guess, didn't like them. Now let's go to the next one. The next one, this is the second one that comes up, RJ Construction, Hardy Siding, picture of a house. Okay, well, let's see what it says if we scroll down. If we scroll down, it says, okay, well, first of all, it's hard as heck to read. James Hardy Siding, Hardy Board, Dallas, Fort Worth, Kansas City. I don't know how Kansas City snuck in there, but it somehow did. Hardy Board Siding is made by James Hardy, is also known as Cement Board Siding. James Hardy is America's #1 brand of siding. Hardy Board Siding is installed. Now, let me ask you this. If somebody Google searched James Hardy Siding Dallas, would they need to be given this little blurb on James Hardy and what it is, or would they want to know who's the best company to actually flipping do the job? And I'm going to tell you something. This content is not moving the needle. It is not moving the needle. Let's go to the next one. We'll go through this quickly. Milland Home Construction, Replacement, Siding, Fort Worth, James Hardy Siding, Dallas. Those are all keywords, of course, that they're putting in there for SEO purposes so that Google likes it. And I'm going to tell you something. We're not going to talk a lot about SEO today, but I'm going to tell you this kind of bull crap on SEO. You think it works and you think it helps, but here's the problem with it. If all you do is you cater your SEO for Google, and when humans read it, it sucks, it's going to not work, or it's going to work way less than it should work. Citing is exposed to Mother Nature all day, every day for years. Weather, water, time, fire. This is bullcrap, people. I don't even know. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it makes my head hurt to look at it. When people find this, they learn nothing. They learn absolutely nothing. We go to the next page and it's more of the same bullcrap. Guess what? That was on the previous companies that they copied off the James Hardie website. It's the same stupid stuff. Nothing on here separates this company, makes them look any different. They think they're the red apple in the sea of green apples, and guess what? They're just another green apple. There's one more that I don't have the brain power to dissect because it's making me angry. Let's go on. Yeah, same thing. Next. Sorry, Tim, I'm getting worked up over here, but trust me, this is going to end up good. At least I hope it will. So here's what this all does. It sounds like Charlie Brown's mother. Remember that from the TV cartoon when you were a kid? You watched that special at Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever, Halloween? Remember what Charlie Brown's mom sounded like? Wah, 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 wah. This is what your marketing sounds like. It sounds like Charlie Brown's mother, or teacher, if you will. And it all just kind of blends in and sounds the same. It's not powerful. It's not precise. There's no passion. It's just words. So here's what identity is. Screenshot this, get your phone out, take a picture of it, write it down, whatever's quickest for you. Definition of identity: words, phrases, and images articulated with power, precision, and passion that instantly, definitively communicate who you are, how you're different and better, and what customers can expect when doing business with you. This is what we're after. Words, phrases, and images articulated with power, precision, and passion that instantly and definitively communicate who you are, how you're different and better, and what customers can expect when they do business with you. This is the gold standard of what your website should say and what all of your marketing should say. When people go to look for you, when they find you, when they see your website, when they find you at a home show, when you knock on their door, when you call them on the phone, when they see your ad in the newspaper, it should fit this definition. Instead, we're throwing Charlie Brown's mother out there. Not a good fit. Okay? Now, let's talk about how this works in marketing. Whoops. Confirmation bias. People look for evidence to support what they already believe. They ignore or minimize evidence that goes against their beliefs. You see this in politics. I put a picture of Donald Trump on the screen. Here's how this works. And I'm going to tie it to the marketing point here in just a second. If you think Donald Trump is awesome, no matter what he does, you're going to look at it and say, yeah, it's good. It's a good call. If you hate Donald Trump, then no matter what he does, it's going to be terrible. Now we'll put another face on the screen. Hillary Clinton. Now we can replace Hillary Clinton with all of these people that are doing the debates. But if you love Hillary Clinton or what the Democrats are saying, then no matter what they say, it sounds awesome. And if you don't like what's said, if you don't like it, then you're going to further your hatred for that party. This is what confirmation bias is. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you how this works in marketing, and I'm going to tell you a quick little story. This has to do with me and my family. Going back about 10, 15 years ago, about 15 years ago, actually, I've got 6 kids. We were doing a cross-country trip in a van from Texas to Idaho, and we wanted to stop at a hotel. And this is in the days before you could just book it online on your smartphone, because smartphones didn't exist back then. So we got to the exit. We were up in here in northern Utah, actually, and we pulled off and we found a Holiday Inn Express. And as we went into the Holiday Inn Express, there was a little sign as we were checking in. It said, "Welcome to the Holiday Inn Express, home of the Stay Smart Showerhead." And there was a picture of this big showerhead, and it said the Stay Smart Showerhead by Kohler. That's the brand of showerhead, Kohler. And I thought, okay, whatever. We checked into the room, actually 2 rooms with all those kids, and there was a little sign next to the TV on the dresser that said, "Welcome to your room at your earliest convenience. Check out the bathroom, home of the Stay Smart bathroom, and the Stay Smart Showerhead by Kohler." There's a picture of this showerhead. My kids are going crazy. They've been cooped up in the car for a couple of days. They're jumping on the beds. They're like 2 to 12 years old, something like that. They're just going bananas. So I go into the bathroom to check this out. And then when I get into the bathroom, I see on the counter in the bathroom is a third, on the counter as we checked in, next to the TV. And now in the bathroom on the counter, there's a little sign. And guess what it says? "Welcome to the Stay Smart bathroom, featuring the Stay Smart Showerhead by Kohler." And there's a picture again on this sign of the actual Stay Smart showerhead. And guess what else there is? There's 3 other things. It says we also have oversized plush towels. We also have a bowed out shower curtain rod. And I looked at it and it was bowed out. That was very innovative back in about 2005, so that when you're in the shower, it's got a little bit more room so other people's naked don't touch you. And then it also said we have designer toiletries. And I looked at them, and sure enough, they look kind of fancy, maybe French or something. And then it said fourth, of course, the Stay Smart shower head. And I looked over there and I couldn't see it because that shower curtain that was bowed out was closed. And I opened it up, and guess what was in there? It was angels singing and light coming out of there, that it was the Stay Smart shower head. And if you want to know how I know, I'll show you on this next picture. There was a flipping sign hanging from the shower head that said, this is the Stay Smart shower head from Kohler. Now, this was 2005, so this was a little flip phone camera, so it's not all that great of a photo, but it gives you an idea. Now, here's what I want you to understand about this. This shower head is just a shower head. It's a little bigger than normal, but if you look at the picture, the actual part that shoots out the water is about the same size. It's got this bigger ring around the edge of it. But they convinced people by showing them this sign where? 4 times at the counter, next to the TV, on the bathroom counter, and then actually hanging from the shower head itself. They did polls, and they found that when they put the signs out, that people believed that the shower was actually better than if they didn't put the signs out. It scored higher in surveys, in ratings. Now, here's what I want you to understand. There are things that you do that are good, things that you do that are better, things that you do that are awesome. And you have got to point at them constantly in your advertising, on your website, at the home shows, and any kind of marketing that you do. You've got to point at it so that people notice it. And when you do, they will believe that it's better than if you don't point at that. In other words, all the great things that you do, if you don't have some way of pointing at them efficiently, guess what's going to happen? You won't get credit for the things that you do that are awesome because people simply will not notice them. Just like you normally do not notice a shower head at the hotel. Okay? Well, what do you want people to know about your company? That you do things really well. There's reasons your customers love you. The key is to identify these things and make it so it's impossible to miss. If they can't immediately tell what to expect when doing business with you, you lose. You have to tell people what to expect. You have to point at and show them your shower head. That's the idea with this identity thing, okay? Now, I'm going to show you just a quick case study. We're kind of keeping an eye on the time here. We'll get through it all. Don't worry. As we look at this website, this is a company called Upscale Remodeling up in Ithaca, New York. And this was their website. This is very old. It's very outdated. You can see that it's not a great website. When we talked to these guys, we said, well, what makes you so great? What do customers love about you? And here's what we discovered. They're detail freaks, okay? Almost to the point of OCD. And they gave me a bunch of examples of times when they just did everything exactly right. One time they ripped out the floor because the stain color wasn't exactly right. They didn't rip it out. They resanded it. It cost them a ton of money, took a lot of extra time. Stories about getting just the right pull knob for kitchens, all of these detail things. They gave me all these examples, and I found out that by doing those things, their customers absolutely positively love them. But when we looked at their website, they just look like any other remodeler. They all look the same. So we fixed it. So here's what the website looked like. And you can look this website up yourself. Just go to upscaleremodeling.com and you can scroll through it. But if you look at it, this top part is what are known as sliders. You've seen these before, that there's about 4 of them on there, and they keep sliding and showing different images. But look what it says. We're hyper strict on installation standards. Every little detail down to the last nail is carefully considered. And then the headline says, welcome to stress-free, quality first, not done until you say it's done remodeling. Successful remodeling doesn't happen by accident. It's deliberate, measured, and absolutely on purpose. We're sticklers for detail. We obsess over perfection. So we're not the fastest and we're not the cheapest, but according to our clients, we're simply the best. Now, here's a question for you. If you go back to the definition of identity and you say, does this with power, precision, and passion definitively and instantly communicate who they are, how they're different, how they're better, and what people can expect when doing business with them? What is the answer? And the answer is, yeah, it accomplishes that. And it does it 1,000 times better than their previous website. Okay? Then we take that same information, we put it into a brochure. and any other marketing they have. Now, we're going to come back and look at this website in a little more detail in just a second, but I just want to show you, you can take this information once you have this identity and you've formed it and created it, you can then put it into any kind of marketing that you want. Here's the brochure on the inside. It's not done until you say it's done, period. We're sticklers for details. We obsess over perfection. Question: power, precision, passion, check, check, check. Instantly, definitively communicate who you are, how you're different and better, and what people can expect when they do business with you. Check, 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 check. This is called identity. Standing out from the crowd, becoming the red apple that you already are, but now communicating it so that people can see what it is. Now, if you're not already a red apple and you're just like everybody else, well, none of this is going to work. You just suck like everybody else. But if you actually are that red apple, now it's a matter of how do we actually communicate it so that people can understand it and know it, okay? And here's what you do. Here's what you do, he said. It's a little laggy here, Tim. Hopefully this comes up. Okay, your identity becomes the hub of all of your marketing. Your website, your print ads, your online ads, TV and radio, home shows, phone scripts, in-home sales, whatever your current bread and butter is, you integrate this into all of those things. And when you do this, here's what happens. You start to get an identity in the marketplace. People start to understand who you are. And then when you take that and you put it into your online advertising, you put it into your website. And now think about this. We'll get to this in a second. We won't spend a lot of time on it, but I want to give you a bigger vision picture here of this. Here's what you do. You now start putting this identity into your TV ads, into your radio ads. And when people start hearing that and they see it again and again and again and again and over and over and over, and if you're like Jericho Home Improvement and you're spending $1 million a year in Kansas City on TV and radio, and if you're like Horizon Services and you're spending $4 or $5 million a year in the marketplace on TV and radio, and if you're like Service Champions in California and you're spending $1 gazillion on TV and radio, here's what happens. After a while, people understand who you are, how you're different, why you're better, what they can expect when they do business with you. You start to position yourself, and here's what happens. You know those prices that are higher than everybody else's? You get the price. People pay it gladly because they know that you're different. They know that you're better. They know that you're worth it before your sales guy ever steps foot in the house. Isn't that what you want? Here's the alternative. Oh, let's go hire a sales trainer and he'll tell our sales guys how to sell better. Well, that's good. Do that. I'm not saying don't do that, but here's what I'm saying. What if your sales guy showed up to a house where they already knew exactly who you were, how you were different, why you were better? What if they knew all that? And they believed it because you've been pointing at that shower head for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. I asked Brian Elias at a seminar recently of Hanson's. It was 2019 when I asked him this question. I said, when did you start advertising on TV? He said, man, it was like 1989, I think, or 1991 or something. Well, yeah, after 20 years, guess what happens? People start to know it and they start to believe it. Okay. Well, let's talk about your website and online marketing. There's two parts of this that I want to cover just briefly. I mentioned this earlier. Step one, conversionability, making sure that your website converts lookers into buyers. That has to do with things like engagement, identity that we just talked about, social proof. This is reviews. This is online reviews. This is case studies. This is testimonials. This is job site photos. How mobile friendly. If your website is not mobile friendly, that's a huge problem. Also, let's just take a look. Well, go back one. I'm going to encourage you to just go to this website. I'll also give you a few other websites that you can go to look at on your own time. But go to this website and just look at it and gauge it from the sense of, will this site convert people who are interested in this topic called remodeling into customers? And if you go down this website, you'll see, not just the headline, but the text. All of the content in this website is geared towards helping people understand that this company is better and different and what they can expect. Okay, we've profiled a few of our customers' projects, get a behind-the-scenes peek at who we work, how we work, and what we do, and then we've got multiple case studies on there so people can see, oh, wow, these people really are sticklers for details. Not just them telling us, proving it. I'll give you an idea on this BBB. You're probably BBB accredited. You know what? People don't know what that means, so we have to tell them what to mean. Think of your prospects like a jury, and you've got to sell them. The BBB grades companies on 16 different factors, from trust and honesty to responsiveness, privacy, incompetency. And we tell them, and then we give them a link so they can go see it on the BBB site. But we don't just say we're BBB accredited and assume that people know what that means. We have to explain it to them, okay? And I won't go into detail for time's sake, but I will go to the next point, which is findability. This is what you call SEO. Can people find you when searching on Google? And I'm going to tell you something. The majority of companies that offer SEO services, they do it absolutely, positively in a crappy way. The best case scenario for your SEO company is that they're helping you put content on your site that is friendly to Google. Almost zero SEO companies actually put engaging content that makes people want to read your website, to stay in your web. Do you know what the number one thing that Google looks for? The number one thing they look for is the most popular site. You know what the number two thing they look for is? By most popular, the one that most people go to. The number two thing they look for is how long do people stay on the site? Because that tells Google that people like what they're seeing when they go onto a given page. So we've got to make your website findable. We've got to do the SEO. We've got to build it in a way that people can actually find it and stay on it. And so here's what we do. And this is something I'm going to offer you if you'll just stick around for another about 15 minutes. I'll put some contact information on the screen. You can actually request us to do an audit of your website for two things. Number one, conversionability, and number two, findability, and then we mesh those into a score. Now, I'm not going to go through this in detail, but I want you to see the level of granularity that we go through when we do these audits. Remember earlier I mentioned a company that was scoring 17 out of 100? Well, that's based on this audit that I'm putting on the screen right now. So the conversionability part has multiple sections. The first section is engagement. The second is identity and evidence. The third section is social proof and other elements. The fourth section is mobile site conversionability. And all of that comes up to a score out of 100. This particular one is 17 out of 100. Just to give you an idea, all of those multiple elements all add up to a maximum of 100, and this particular one scored 17. Findability is very similar. So we go through the multiple sections: site performance, technical, site performance, on-site findability, there's multiple elements there. On-site, off-site findability, there's multiple elements there. Mobile and site findability, there's multiple elements there, and it all comes up with a score. In this case, it was 40. So you take the 40 plus the 17 for conversionability, and you average those out, and it comes out to whatever that is, like 20-something. Not good. But this is something that we can do for your website. I'm going to invite you to look at these websites. Just jot them down, take a screenshot, take a photo with your mobile phone right now. Go look these websites up later. Service Champions actually has two websites because there's two different companies, one in Southern and one in Northern California. One is servicechampions.com. The other one is servicechampions.net. Look at them both. We've done both of these websites. They're both outstanding. Jericho Home Improvements, just Google these: upscale remodeling, Zen Windows in Denver and Colorado Springs, and you will get a really good feel for a website that not just converts well, but is also very high on the findability scale. Okay? Tim, I'm glad that we're going to have a break here and talk to Katie for a second, because, man, I'm going a million miles an hour here and I'm getting a sore throat. So let's throw it over to Katie for a second.
All right, will do, Rich. Thanks so much. Great stuff, great content. And I think you're right. It all begins with that mindset. It really does. And sometimes we can't think we can achieve certain things. And I think you brought up some good points in terms of how to get your thinking in line to make sure you say to yourself, you know what, I can get to that point. I can be like this company or that company, and so forth and so on. So yes, we'd want to chat a little bit with Katie here from the Window and Door Dealers Alliance. And as I mentioned earlier, this is an organization that we at MarketSharp have been involved with for a long time. And many of you on this webinar are in the window and door business. And I just want to give Katie an opportunity to give you a little information about what their organization offers. So Katie, are you with us?
I am. Thank you, Tim. I'm Katie Gregg with the Window and Door Dealers Alliance. We are a MarketSharp partner, and for those of you on the line that aren't familiar with us, we are the only national business organization representing the interests of retail, wholesale, installing dealers of new and replacement windows, doors, skylights, related building products. We do this in several ways. You can see it on your screen, but some highlights include our cost-cutting member benefits, which do include savings with MarketSharp, as well as a new peer networking group that we're launching this fall, so stay tuned for information on that. We also have publications, newsletters, reports that serve as really great resources for the industry. Most recently, we delivered a benchmarking report, which gives insights into the window and door dealer industry with trends and statistics, market analysis, financial information. And then, of course, we offer education and networking, especially through our annual event, Window and Door Dealer Day, and a variety of webinar topics. So if we can go to the next slide, I'll keep it very short. You know, we're all aware at this point in the webinar that Rich is fantastic and full of valuable information, actionable takeaways. So we are especially thrilled to have him as our keynote speaker for Window and Door Dealer Day, and that's taking place September 16th in Atlanta. So we'll spend the day talking everything digital, online identity, marketing, SEO, geofencing, and really spend a full day of programming diving into those subjects. So I hope you'll consider joining us, joining Rich, joining your peers there. And I should mention that when you join the Window and Door Dealers Alliance, you do get one complimentary registration to the event. So thank you again. We're happy to support today's webinar, and I'll turn it back over to Rich and Tim.
All right. Thanks so much, Katie. And yes, if you're in the window and door business, check this out. There's nothing better than being able to get together with peers in your business and share and learn from each other. So if you don't mind, I'm going to send you a quick little poll question here and just ask you if you'd like to learn more about the organization or the event coming up in Atlanta. So go ahead and just let us know. And I'll pass this information on to Katie, and they'll just follow up based on our leading here and get you the information on the Window and Door Dealers Alliance. So we'll leave the poll up for just a second, and then we're going to get back to Rich, and we're going to learn a little bit more about the remaining couple elements of how to get your business to the next level. So quickly go ahead and click. I'll close the poll in just a sec here. Okay, and I realize some of you aren't in the window and door business, so you probably are saying, I don't need to answer that poll, and that's probably true, so that's cool. All right, I'm going to close the poll right about now. Thank you so much. And I'll get that information off to Katie for you. All right, Rich, back to you. Let's talk radio and TV, and then we're also going to talk about, I believe, we're going to wind down with some lead management information.
Yes, and thank you for that information about the association. Katie, super stoked about speaking at your conference in September, and man, it's almost July, so we're just talking a couple months from now. So get on that. Would love to see you guys out at that conference and talk to you live there, and look forward to seeing you, Katie. Tim, thanks for giving me a little break there. I'm totally revived and ready to go here for the last stretch run here. If you're looking at the clock, it's about 3 minutes after the hour. We will be done here within about 10 or 15 minutes. So just hang in there. A couple of things that I want to make sure you hang in there for. First of all, we're going to give away some books at the end. Second of all, I'm going to put some contact information up. If you'd like to get the website audit that I just spoke about before the break, I'll show you how to take advantage of that. You can request it. It's free of charge. Also, we're going to talk about TV and radio advertising. You can see that on your screen. I'm also going to offer you a media audit. If you are a company that is currently doing TV and radio, I'll tell you this, it's almost certain that your media is not as efficient as it could be. And that's a part of what we're going to talk about here. And I'll show you how to get that media audit if you're interested in that as well. Okay. So let's talk about taking it to the next level. I mentioned to you earlier about a conversation I had with Horizon Services. They were doing $44 million. None of that was on TV. A tiny amount was on radio. The first year we spent $1 million on the first year we spent $1 million on radio, and then we put an additional $2 million into TV. But the reason that they were hesitant is that they just had bad experience with it in the past. And one of the complaints that the owner had was, we don't like it because we can't track it. If we run a newspaper ad, we put a special phone number on there. We know exactly how many phone calls came from that. We also know exactly how many calls come from direct mail and these other things that we're doing. We'd like to be able to track stuff. And I looked at him and I said to him what I'm going to say to you right now, if you have that same concern, you're going to have to let that go. You're going to have to let it go. We can track radio and TV to an extent, but it is also true that a huge amount of the leads that come through radio and TV actually funnel through your website, which is why the website is the foundational part of this that's got to be done before you can even get to the actual advertising part. If you got a crap website, TV and radio advertising is going to be wasting your money. So when I told him, look, you've got to get over that. We'll track it as best we can, but here's the real thing. Here's the question you've got to ask yourself. If you don't do radio and TV, then how are you going to get to that next level. How are you going to reach the marketplace? Here's the thing. You've got to reach a lot of people consistently at a very low CPM. What CPM? Cost per 1,000 people. So think about direct mail. If you send direct mail at 30 cents each to 1,000 people, that's $300 per 1,000. We can reach people on TV for anywhere from about $2 to $8 per 1,000. Radio in that same range. And at some point, you're going to have to expand your visibility in the marketplace. The easiest, most inexpensive way to do that is through TV and radio. There's also some elements of YouTube advertising, Facebook advertising. In my opinion, Facebook and YouTube are simply TV channels. You think, well, that's weird because they're on the internet. Well, all TV is and all radio is a place where there's a bunch of ears and eyes that you can stick your advertising so people see it. And a lot of people are on YouTube, so we have a lot of success there. People are on Facebook, we have a lot of success there. So when I say TV and radio advertising, also include in that YouTube and Facebook. But you've got to find a way to reach people at a low cost per 1,000. You've got to do it. In some cases, direct mail and newspaper, but for the most part, unless you're reaching really, really old people, which newspaper is actually pretty good for, radio and TV is going to be your best bet. Your identity is going to be the foundation for your message. And you can see some examples of some ads. If you go to level10contractor.com and then you go to the services tab and then you click on radio and TV, you'll see something that looks like this, where there's a bunch of samples of radio ads that you can listen to. There's also a bunch of TV ads that you can watch that'll give you an idea of what it looks like and what it sounds like when you integrate the identity into your advertising. Now, before we move on, and I just have a couple of minutes to talk about TV and radio, I want to mention this. I alluded to it a second ago, but I want you to know that the way that you buy this stuff is all important. It makes a massive difference. And I also want you to know this. No matter how sophisticated you are at doing it, it's almost certain that you are not buying as efficiently as possible. I run across this all the time. Business owners say, hey, I'm good at negotiation. I know what I'm doing. The reality is, if you do not speak fluently the language of radio and TV, cost per 1,000, frequency, gross impressions, if you don't speak it fluently, you will get screwed by the sales reps. You just will. I know this because I live it, I eat it, I breathe it every single day. I've got a client right now, they're in Chicago. We just renegotiated their contract with the largest news talk radio station up there, and we got a deal that was, I haven't done the exact math on it, I think it's about 80% more efficient than their existing buy that they had before. They just didn't know how to negotiate it. Worked with a company in Atlanta. They were also in terms of radio, they were on the largest news talk there. They were spending $300,000 a year on the news talk radio station. I went in and within 1 day was able to renegotiate that contract so that it was, let's see, we can say this in two different ways. Either we could get the same thing that they were buying for about half price, or for the same money, we could get twice as much advertising. They just didn't know how to negotiate it, and they had been running on that crap schedule for 8 years. 8 years of inefficiency that they didn't even recognize or realize, that took me literally 1 day to renegotiate to a better deal. 1 day. And people get upset. They say, well, how much do you get paid to do that? Well, it's 15%. Well, I don't want to pay you 15% because I'll take that discount and I'll do it myself. But the problem is when you take that discount and you do it yourself, but you're paying 20, 30, 50, 80, 200, 3,000 in some cases percent more, you're shooting yourself in the foot before you ever get started. I can tell you confidently, when I took over Jericho's media buying in 2015, they were using one of the largest, most prestigious advertising agencies in the city of Kansas City at the time. We improved all of their media buys across the board by a minimum of 30 and as much as 60% within a month. It was all done. So that means that for the same $1 million, it was now that much more efficient and effective. What would you rather have? Would you rather have $1 million worth of advertising for $1 million, or would you rather have $600,000 of advertising for $1 million? Because that's what they were doing. They were only getting $600,000 worth for their $1 million. This is a real thing, and it's a huge problem, and it's systemic. I see it everywhere I go. If you are currently buying radio and TV, you would be wise to say, Rich, take a look at it, do an audit, and I'll tell you what kinds of things you need to send me. It's very easy to do. It's not actually that easy to do. It takes a little bit of time, but it's not that difficult, and it can be done. Okay, so let's move to the next thing here. The next thing here is lead management. Look at this graphic. It's interesting. You got leads out here on the outside with these chess pieces. Then you got prospects. Then you got customers. Then you got a couple guys with the green thing on them that are actually, right in the bullseye. And here's what we want to do. We want to make sure that we're getting more of the leads that you already do generate into that center customer. And I mentioned this earlier. It's an inefficient thing that a lot of companies really are kind of falling flat on. So let me just give you a little bit of an idea on this, and then I'm going to throw it over to Tim to talk about it for just a second. There's 3 ways to grow your business. The first way is to get more leads. This is what everybody wants. It's obviously an important part of it, but also charging higher prices. But here's the part that people miss: converting more of the leads that you do get. Most of the attention in this area is based on sales training. Okay, if we got better salespeople, we will close more, and that's good. I agree with that. But managing the leads that you get, making sure that you get in touch with them fast enough so you don't miss them, hugely important. Number 2, consistency and frequency of follow-up, massively important. And also knowing your numbers and accountability. You would be shocked at how many companies I talk to when I ask them for their basic numbers of conversion ratios, how many leads turn into appointments and into sales. They either don't have it or they have to dig, and they have to come back, a week or 2 later, and they've got crap numbers. We're seeing this right now with a $40 million air conditioning company we're working with. Their numbers are almost non-existent because they don't have the right software to track it. So I'm going to strongly recommend that you have the right lead management software. It's foundational for everything that you do. If you do everything that we've talked about, right mindset, lead generation, website, identity, TV, radio, but you don't manage the leads properly, you're going to lose efficiency of anywhere from 10 to 30 to 40%. So that's where a software like MarketSharp comes in play. And Tim, I'm going to throw it over to you to talk about that for a second.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. And I just want to mention a couple things pretty much related to what you talked about here. And we're in a good position here at MarketSharp because we got a whole bunch of clients that use the program, many of you on this call. And last year was a great year for MarketSharp clients. If you look at some of these aggregate stats that we can pull out, and this is so cool that we can look at it this way. The number of inquiries or leads generated and managed through MarketSharp was 2.3 million, turned into a little shy of 1.8 million appointments set, little shy of 1.5 million leads issued to salespeople, resulting in about 1.2 million leads actually fully presented. And then, based on that, 430,000 of those leads actually turn into sales. The average sale is $7,500. Total revenue funneled through MarketSharp, $3,250,000,000. Kind of crazy. But what I want to focus on here are those numbers on the right. That 75.9%, which represents, based on the number of leads generated, what percent of them turn into appointments? And then what percent of appointments turn into leads issued to salespeople? What percent of those turn into leads demoed? And what percent of those turned into net sales? And I think what you're seeing here is you're seeing diminishing things happening there. So the goal is to get processes and systems in place to make little improvements on every one of those steps. To the point, if you do, and this is stunning to me, if you will just get about 10% better at every one of those processes, converting inquiries to appointments, appointments to leads issued, issued to demoed, demoed to sales, just get 10% better at each one of those, which is totally practical. Your business grows by 61% because it compounds. Kind of incredible. And that should be encouraging. So I think the point is, what can we do to make that as efficient as we can? And what Rich was talking about is, what you see on screen right now, I added a couple letters out front of this terminology, CRM, which is Customer Relationship Management. And we think it's no longer an option anymore. And certainly we at MarketSharp have felt that way for a long time. But I think what's critical now, those letters IS out front, what that represents is we think it's no longer an option to have an industry-specific customer relationship management system, not something generic that you got to tweak. So MarketSharp, as many of you know, because many of you are users of MarketSharp, it's a business in a box. It helps you in the admin, marketing, sales, production part of your business. helps you do all the right things consistently, and just kind of holds it all together. And that's what's cool. It ends up being the core of your business. And then what's neat is we spent a ton of time here connecting it with all these success tools that many of you use. And it all speaks to each other, makes them much more efficient. Here we got Rich's company, level 10. We got financing going on. We got payment processing over here with Pay Simple. We got estimating programs like Leap, One-Click Contractor, of course, our friends at Home Advisor. You know, it's really neat how all this works. So I'm going to send you a quick poll question and then back to Rich. And he's just going to summarize a couple things, and then we'll get you guys back to your business. So if you're interested in learning more about what MarketSharp can do for your business, go ahead and let us know. And you might be a user of MarketSharp already. If you are, go ahead and just say already use it. Whoops, I think I sent the wrong poll. I did send the wrong poll. Darn it.
Well, the right poll was on there a minute ago.
What was it? What's up now?
Now's the level 10 contractor poll.
Yeah. All right. Sorry about that. So I'll get you a poll in a second about MarketSharp. So Rich, why don't you come in, because I'll leave this poll up for a little bit here and let them know about the website audit and media audit. Sorry about that.
Yeah, you know, I want to make a comment about this. I'm looking at this slide. I actually practice what I preach. I took a screenshot with my phone of this these stats you put on there. You know, I get people all the time. I ask them, so what's your closing ratio? And this number, 34.7%, is really typical. You know, usually it's in the 30% range, 35% range. But that's sales to demo. If you look at that number, 430,000 sales to inquiries, leads, it's 430 out of 2.3 million. What is that? That's like less than 20%.
Yeah.
What happened to all these other leads that never became appointments or issue? What's going on here?
Right.
And the answer is we got to get this a little bit better under control. And I'm going to make another comment here too. If you're already a MarketSharp customer, I want to tell you something. This software, if you will take the time to learn how to use all of it, is awesome. A lot of you guys I know, I've talked to Tim, and you know, this is typical with any software. You get the software and you use it in some of the main level functions, and you get good at using really like 50% of the functionality, and it's the other 50%. Do you know how many things there are that you can set up to automatically contact and touch base and keep in touch with these contacts? That a lot, I know Tim, hopefully I'm not like ratting you out here, but a lot of companies, they just don't use that stuff because they haven't thought about it. They didn't get trained on it. They're too busy with other stuff. Am I right, Tim?
Yeah, you certainly are.
So there's definitely room for improvement. So if you're already on MarketSharp, encourage you to learn even more about how to use it. If you're not on MarketSharp, you know, let's get with the program. All right, let's move on here. We're basically done. I just want to show you a couple things, and then I'm going to end the webinar. Okay, so yeah, let's just show you a couple quotes. This is from, first of all, Brian Elias at Hanson's, talking about the book. The book details the exact formula I used to grow Hanson's to 80 million before I sold the company. That's a good quote from Brian Elias. If you don't know him, look him up. This is from Dave Normandin. He came to an event I did in Baltimore, I think in April. He sent me this email afterwards, unsolicited. I just finished the book and want to applaud you. Been running home improvement companies for 30 years. It's the first book that truly hit home. That's because it's the first book that's actually for contractors. Everything in there is specific to you. Then he talks about books like Good to Great, Tracker, The E-Myth, Make Big Happen. They all have pieces of relevant information, but you nailed it. 2018, we did 60 million. What I picked up in this book, $100 million, here we come. Thanks for that quote, Dave. I love that quote, and I believe it's true. I mean, this is a level 10 company. They will get there. And then one last one. This is from John Bartram. Whoops, went too far. We knew how to spend money on advertising before we met level 10. What we didn't know was how to communicate our unique advantages, power, precision, and passion in our ads. Our revenue per lead has almost doubled since we started working with level 10. People call us now. They already know that they want to use Jericho. It's made a huge difference in this company. Their revenues have only gone up by, close to 50% since they started working with them, but their profitability, through the roof. Profitability through the roof. They spend the same amount of money on advertising as they did 4 years ago, but now their sales are 50% higher and their profitability is higher. Do the math. It's a good equation. All right, we're going to end it up here. If I can get it to the next slide, it's a little laggy here. Okay, website or media audit. Here's how you can contact me. Well, if you, whoops, go back one, Tim. If you filled out the Can you go back? Can you go back? Yeah, if you filled out the poll question, that's great. Or you can just contact me directly. You can email me at rich@level10contractor.com. You can call me. That's my cell number. It'll go directly to me. You can check us out on our website. There's also a form on the website you can fill out to request some of these various things. When you do that, I'll put my team in action to get in touch with you. You'll be hearing probably from Brian Bauman. He's the COO of our company. He handles all the web services, and we'll get these things going for you. We'll take a look at your website. Plus, if you just have any questions, just feel free to reach out to me. All my contact information is right there. So, Tim, I'm going to throw it back over to you to tie a bow on this and get us out of here.
Sounds good. What we're going to do, Rich, is just give some stuff away, and then we will wrap. So we got a couple winners here. First off, the winner of the MarketSharp subscription is going to be Brian Miller. So, Brian, congratulations. We'll reach out to you and get you started with MarketSharp. Then we got 3 books we're giving away, and we'll reach out to you and get your address. And Rich will get those sent off to you. First book is Christopher Brown. Congratulations, Christopher. We got Corey Cover, who also is winning a book. And then also we got Kristen Stamen from, I think I know Kristen, from the Minneapolis area. So these books will be coming your way. And thanks so much for joining us for the webinar. So listen, watch your email. We'll get a follow-up email probably tomorrow. That'll have a link to the recording if you want to listen again or have a staff member listen in on a webinar. Well, you're welcome to do that. Plus, we'll have some links to some of the resources we talked about on the webinar. So thanks to our sponsors, MarketSharp, Window and Door Dealers Alliance, Level 10 Contractor. Thanks to Katie and Rich for providing the content here. And we'll look forward to seeing you all very soon on another webinar or maybe at a live event. Take care, everybody. Bye now.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Katie. Bye-bye.